I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
There we go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. Wow, what a crazy, wild ride. The last 24 hours, the news breaking. The Inspector General report from Michael Horowitz is out. Also, you have the impeachment saga, the sham impeachment saga that is continuing. Here's the thing about the Inspector General report. You want to know the truth about it? The truth about the Inspector General's report is that this is essentially an outline for maybe, I guess you would say, like a ground zero or a baseline of details. And we're going to get more specific details as the U.S. Attorney from Connecticut dives into the FBI's conduct with the Trump campaign in 2016. Okay, so before you, and maybe you guys have already heard this, but you want to know what the best analogy is on this Inspector General report that came out? The Inspector General is to the government what the Human Resource Department is to a corporation. It exists to protect the workforce, and people believe that. In reality, it exists to protect the corporation and keep them out of legal trouble. So when you read this Inspector General's report, you have to put that lens on to view it. It exists, essentially, the Inspector General really exists to protect the government. And that being said, the report itself is damning. It's damning to people like James Comey. It's damning to the FBI. The one quote in there that says that not only you not only had lower level FBI officials doing things that were not right, but you had you had several people in supervisory capacity doing things that were not right. We have not seen the end of this. First of all, in the report, Horowitz laid out the disclaimer on the very front end that he would not be challenging the discretionary authority, meaning he took James Comey and others' excuses. He just took their excuses at face value. He gave them the benefit of the doubt. So if Inspector Horowitz went to James Comey or someone else and was like, hey, why'd you do this? And he answered, then, oh, okay, all right, sounds good, moving on. So the whole thing is pretty vague. Then Michael Horowitz basically set a very high bar for any kind of misconduct. And Horowitz has no criminal authority. Did you know that former employees of the Justice Department cannot be forced to talk to him? So if you're a former employee, you can't even talk to Horowitz. There's been a lot of people that have left because, well, for obvious reasons. I think we all know that. So the report is somewhat incomplete, even though it's 450 pages long. There's a criminal investigation that's ongoing by John Durham, the U.S. Attorney from Connecticut, and that will be the telltale sign. So we've got to go over this report today because it is, even though you have to look at it with that lens on, it still lays out some incredible abuses of power. What's ironic in all of this is the articles of impeachment that they're drafting against the president. One of those charges is going to be abuse of power. Yesterday, as I was listening to the mainstream media coverage of all of this, I did get a little depressed, I'm not going to lie. As the report came out, I was reading it, digesting it, but then I was hearing what the mainstream media was saying about it, and I just thought, I don't know how this is all going to shake out when you have a mainstream media that is just willing to deceive the public, is willing to just put such an agenda behind everything to protect. I mean, if you believe the mainstream media, then why is it that all of the people in the Trump administration don't get the benefit of the doubt, but all of the people in the Obama administration do get the benefit of the doubt? I mean, it's insane to me. Oh, you can't trust him. He's working for the Trump administration. But you can trust those that were working for the Obama Justice Department and Eric Holder and James Comey? It's just crazy to even suggest such a thing. But that's the lens. And so every time there's something that breaks, you have the mainstream media that's defending the government, defending the deep state, the lifers. And the media used to just speak truth to power. It didn't matter who you were. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we're going to talk to Gregory Wrightstone, geologist, author of Inconvenient Facts, the Science That Al Gore Doesn't Want You to Know About. Christmas sweaters. We're going to be talking about Christmas sweaters. You might say, Paul, why in the world? Normally you talk about climate change and the phony hoax of global warming and everything else. That's what you normally talk about with Gregory Wrightstone. Well, we are going to talk about that. Would you believe that the radical environmental left are coming after your Christmas sweaters? And what they call it, quick fashion? Quick fashion? Quick fashion now is a threat to the planet and the oceans and plastics. And yeah. We'll talk to him about that. Oh, by the way, Walmart's had to apologize. Speaking of Christmas sweaters, you realize Walmart's had to apologize because they were, through a third party on their website, they were selling a Christmas sweater that showed Santa doing lines of cocaine. I believe the text on the sweater said, quote, "Let it snow," and it was Santa looking over a coffee table with lines of cocaine on it. So they had to apologize for that one. We're not going to be talking about those Christmas sweaters, though. We're going to talk about some more traditional ones. Here's what President Trump had to say about the Department of Justice Inspector General report. TheHill.com tweeting this video. Listen to this. It's the Zero Hedge. The Zero Hedge article right there. And there it is. TheHill.com tweeted this.
GIG report just came out, and I was just briefed on it, and it's a disgrace what's happened with respect to the things that were done to our country. It should never again happen to another president. It is incredible, far worse than I would have ever thought possible. And it's an embarrassment to our country. It's dishonest. It's everything that a lot of people thought it would be, except far worse.
Is that all? Yeah, so that's the President of the United States yesterday. It is far worse in many regards, and it's going to get much worse for those that have done this, that have perpetrated this. Folks, when you lied to a FISA court here in this case is going to have no choice. And obviously, I tell you who's been right on this the whole time, and that's Sean Hannity. If you've been watching Sean Hannity on Fox News or listening to his radio broadcast, the guests that he's had on, John Solomon and others, they've all been right about this. They've all been correct. Everything they said was true. It's all in the report. It's just the mainstream media just pounces on. Well, Michael Horowitz said that there was stuff that they did that was wrong, but it wasn't bias. It wasn't intentional bias. Well, it's because he accepted their explanations as truth. When you have Peter Strzok being, you're honestly going to tell me Peter Strzok is absolved in this? That a U.S. attorney's not going to look? And by the way, we still don't. There's still other text messages that have not been made public. We don't really know what some of the other text messages were said. We do know about an insurance policy. We do know about anti-Trump texts. But listen to some of this. Go to this tweet by Congressman Jim Jordan. So let me get this straight. He writes, Carter Page was an operational contact for a different U.S. government agency, the CIA, briefing the CIA on communications with a Russian contact. But the FBI ignored this fact. Instead, they spied on Page and the Trump campaign. Do you think the FISA court might have wanted to know if Carter Page was in connection with the CIA briefing them on information? You think that might have had an impact on whether the FISA court granted the FBI access to do so? Here's Paul Sperry from Real Clear Investigations. Paul said this is actually just kind of an addendum, if you will. Breaking, Jerry Nadler just reluctantly agreed with the GOP request to enter this Politico.com article into the official impeachment record. This article is key. It debunks the Dems and mainstream media talking point that Ukrainian interference in 2016 election was, quote, debunked. This is the Political article, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. It is not a debunked conspiracy theory. Next tweet, we have John Solomon. The Inspector General excoriates FBI conduct in Russia probe, concludes FISA court was misled. Attorney General Barr says the report substantiates clear abuse of the FISA process. Next, back to Paul Sperry, Real Clear Investigations. Breaking, U.S. Attorney John Durham poo-pooing IG Horowitz's findings that FBI had adequate predication to open the investigation of 4 Trump campaign officials, noting Horowitz was limited in who he interviewed and that Durham has interviewed witnesses, including overseas, and has additional evidence. Now, that is key. And the reason that is key, when Paul Sperry says that Durham has witnesses that are overseas, we can assume that those witnesses are the intelligence officials of Italy, the intelligence officials, I think, of even Australia, because we know that Attorney General William Barr and John Durham went to Italy, and they were successful in having a meeting with the intelligence officials, and they've probably done this all across the planet, okay, because this was not something that was simply a domestic operation, because you had the FBI involved in overseas intelligence gathering operations, apparently. That is huge, okay? The fact that Attorney John Durham, U.S. Attorney John Durham, this guy has interviewed a ton of people that the Inspector General has not. So he has more, you would assume, more context. And probably a lot of the explanations that people within the Justice Department gave to Horowitz may be contradicted by the people that John Durham has talked to. Here's this other tweet by Kayleigh McNanny. Attorney General Bill Barr on damning IG Horowitz report. IG shows FBI, quote, launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. So, obviously, this will give the radical left more of an excuse to hate Bill Barr, to question his resume, which, if Bill Barr was the Attorney General for any other president but Donald Trump, people would think he was fine and his resume was great and that he's the most respected man in Washington. But because he's partnered and working for President Trump, who is an agent of change, an agent of massive change, where you have all of these lifers within the bureaucracy, within the State Department that disagree with his policies, and they're not willing to execute those policies, all of a sudden Bill Barr is no longer respectable. You can't trust him. Here is Dan Bongino Dan Bongino of the new, he's obviously former Secret Service, but he's got this new website out called the Bongino Report. By the way, there are some reports out there, Rasmussen tweeting that Matt Drudge of the Drudge Report may not own the Drudge Report anymore, that it's now coming out that he may have sold the Drudge Report and he has nothing to do with it, which would explain a whole lot if you have been following politics and all kinds of websites, including the Drudge Report, like I have for the last 10 years. Something definitely is wrong. And anyway, we'll have to see. But this is what Dan Bongino said. Let's see the media hacks spin this disaster. The Crossfire Hurricane team failed to inform the DOJ of significant information, much of which was inconsistent with or undercut its FISA application assertions. Have fun, media hacks. Snap to it. Well, they did. That's exactly what they did. Here's Congressman Mark Meadows. He's got 2 tweets here. The first one, I just got out of a nearly 2-hour briefing on the IG report. It's deeply disturbing. Some former FBI and DOJ officials are about to have some serious explaining to do. More details to come shortly. And after reading this, it's no wonder we've seen defensive leaks in the New York Times and CNN, and that the Democrats rushed to hold an impeachment hearing the same day. It's every bit as bad as advertised and certainly worse than the media has been discussing. And here is Jonathan Turley, the liberal constitutional law scholar, tweeting this about the entire impeachment proceeding. Quote, frankly, when I look at this impeachment, I see a banana taped to a wall. As others coo over the power and evidence in the report, I continue to look around, scratching my head, wondering why others don't see the obvious gaps and conflicts. Now, for those of you that don't get that reference, you need to look up banana tape to a wall. There was an art exhibit that recently sold for $120,000, and it was a banana duct taped to a wall. By the way, the worse our art gets, the worse we as a civilization get, morally, by the way. The more lazy our art becomes, the more debauched we become. This is something that you can chart. The theologian Francis Schaeffer did this in his book, How Should We Then Live, and other books, The God Who Is There. I believe, I don't know if it was The God Who Is There or not, but anyway, he's done it many times, especially in Rome, where you look at their art, and the worse it gets, the worse the civilization gets, the lazier it gets. A banana duct taped to a wall sold for $120,000. And that's the point Jonathan Turley's making here.
I took a class in college. It was when you're a freshman, you have to take, or when you're doing your basics, you have to take one of 3 courses. You can either do fine arts, visual,
music,
or, and then I can't
theater.
Theater, thank you.
Yeah.
I took fine arts visual. I took the art
sorry.
class. No,
I'm sorry.
I like art. I like looking at art. I really do.
I can look at the figurative stuff. I can't look at the splotches on a paper and be like, ooh, or banana duct tape to a wall.
Well, here's the thing.
Or a cross in a jar of urine. You know, that's an old one.
So here's the thing. So 90% of what we covered was all of the good stuff, like all of the art that leads up to modern art.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really good. And then we got to Andy Warhol, and I was like, I understand the reason he did what he did, the why he made the art that he made, but then we really got to modern art, and I was just like, this is just stupid. Like, and our teacher literally, like, I asked a question because one of the first pieces we covered was called The Fountain. It was a famous artist. He submitted to an art gallery an upside-down urinal he found at a dump with a fake name written on it, and it was supposed to be some social commentary on the
See what?
It's supposed to be some social commentary on the art, on art as a whole at the time.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "Oh, this is so profound. Like knowing what I know about it," and I was just like,
This is stupid.
"It's just a urinal."
Yeah.
And she looked at me, and was like, if you knew you could make that money off of this, you would do. I go, absolutely, but I think it's still stupid.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
manipulation
dumb.
of the process. I was at an art gallery a couple maybe a year or so ago, and it was just the art project was literally a newspaper stand, like one of those plastic newspaper stands, with stacks of newspapers positioned a certain way. That was it, and it was like, do not touch, but that's all it was. And I'm just like, I don't get this. Now, the banana tape to the banana duct tape to the wall, somebody ate it. Somebody walked up, it's a viral video, go check it out, and just took it off the wall. It was $120,000 and ate it. And again, Jonathan Turley, frankly, when I look at this impeachment, I see a banana taped to a wall. As others coo over the power and evidence in the report, I continue to look around scratching my head like, wait a second, this is art? This is a banana duct taped to a wall. We got to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
As we speak, Beijing is employing a whole-of-government approach, using political, economic, and military tools as well as propaganda.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
There was this speaking of art, there was this artist that got Donald Trump to retweet his picture of himself. It was a picture of the president, but it had been drawn with ballpoint pens, and it's incredible. The detail is incredible, and it looks like a photograph, and that is actual talent. That is actual art. I mean, I'm a figurative art guy. I can get behind paintings of things I can recognize in the world. Like, I like, like pictures of flowers or what. Anyway, I mean, just give me something that that you've painted or you've drawn that's an actual thing, So it's pretty nuts. Do we have time for this? Here is, we have a minute and a half. Joe, this is Congressman Rick Crawford. Congressman Rick Crawford's going to be on the program Friday. Last Friday, he was on Fox and Friends first, and he was asked about this whole impeachment situation. Listen to what he said.
Tell you who we need to be concerned with about contact and conversations with the whistleblower, and that's Adam Schiff himself and his staff. That will come out, and that's why Adam Schiff is making it such a deal about he doesn't want to testify before the Senate. He complained about others that didn't want to testify before the House impeachment inquiry, but he's taken a position now that he doesn't feel like he should be called to testify. So again, this is just such a rush. I listened to the audio as we were coming on with Nancy Pelosi talking about this wasn't political. It's exactly what it is. It's highly partisan, highly political. That's why they're moving with such speed. But let me just point one thing out, and the president's made this clear. He's got big shoulders, and he's doing this to prevent this from happening to future presidents. If anybody's doing anything to protect the republic at this point right now, it's the president, because he said, bring it on. I want my day in court. And that's what he wants to happen. So he clear his name.
It certainly sounds like you want to go.
You can check that out. The headline is Pelosi. Well, I can't say Pelosi directs Democrats to proceed with impeachment inquiry. It was Fox and Friends first, where House Intelligence Committee member Rick Crawford weighed in on the impeachment proceedings. And the sham continues, by the way, in Jerry Nadler's committee now. Back in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
To advance its influence and benefit its interests in the United States.
And I have wanted to welcome back to Arkansas Chairman Chu. Please give Chairman Chu a round of applause.
China is also applying this power in more proactive ways than ever before to exert influence and interfere in the domestic policy and politics of this country.
Chairman Chu, I got to know as he is the CEO and chairman of Shandong Ruyi Technology Group out of Shandong Province.
Over the past 17 years, China's GDP has grown ninefold. It's become the second largest economy in the world. Much of this success was driven by American investment in China. And the Chinese Communist Party has also used an arsenal of policies inconsistent with free and fair trade, including tariffs, quotas, currency manipulation, forced technology transfer, intellectual property theft, and industrial subsidies that are handed out like candy to foreign investment.
We've been to Shandong Province a number of times since I've been governor. We've called on people, and Chairman Chu gave us the opportunity to meet with him at Ruyi, at their technology group there in Shandong, and saw his incredible facility. We asked him to visit Arkansas. He did. So Chairman Chu, we're delighted to have you here. I'm excited about signing this agreement with you, and I welcome you to Arkansas.
These policies have built Beijing's manufacturing base at the expense of its competitors, especially the United States of America.
And I wanted to recognize Chairman Lee to my right, who is the founder of Sun Paper of Shandong Province in China. I also want to recognize Secretary Ma of Shandong Province.
As President Trump said,
all right,
just
folks, welcome
this
back
week,
to the program. Thanks so much for
words.
being with us. Hang on. We got a bumper that's got a fire here.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay, so later in the show, we do have some more economic development news for you. It is unbelievable what I'm reading in the headlines this morning. But folks, first of all, let's talk a little bit about Christmas sweaters. Everybody's got a favorite Christmas sweater. Well, if you don't have one yourself, you can certainly admire the Christmas sweaters that you see. They're getting worse and worse. Recently, Walmart actually had to apologize for a line of what is described here as R-rated Christmas sweaters, one including Santa snorting a line of cocaine. The Christmas sweater said, hang on a second, I've got the photo right here. Let it snow. And a line of cocaine where Santa's, anyway, pretty ridiculous. But would you believe that Christmas sweaters are contributing to climate change? Listen to this. Christmas sweaters are adding to plastic pollution, environmental charity says. This is a CNN video. I bet a lot of you didn't know this, but the environmental left, the radical environmental left, they're coming after your Christmas sweaters. Here to talk more about that, we have geologist and author of inconvenient facts the science Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Gregory Wrightstone's back with us. Gregory, how are you this morning?
Oh, really, really good. Yeah, I don't know if you know, but Mrs. Claus got Santa a copy of my book last year, and he had gone off the grid and was trying to power up the North Pole with the wind energy. He actually had to read my book by using Rudolph's red nose. And he learned from my book, though, that Earth is actually thriving and benefiting, and he's back on the grid now. They have electricity 24 hours a day, and he's ready to deliver those books to your listeners for this Christmas.
I think that's excellent. I mean, that Santa came to his senses. He bought into the radical left for a little while, but then he realized, I need electricity. That's
right.
So did you see this story about Christmas sweaters, though?
I did not. I was just, and when you were, I was Googling it. I didn't quite get it all in there. I'm gonna, because I have a list for my next book. I'm making a list of all these just ridiculous predictions that they've got. There's one of that we'll see increasing toenail fungus because of climate change. They get more ridiculous by the day, and they use anything that's unusual or anything they could just, let's throw this up against the wall and see what sticks. I think people are catching on to it.
I do too, and I always take their claims and I work them backwards. So if climate change is going to increase toenail fungus, as you said, then stopping climate change will reduce toenail fungus. And if you phrase it that way, then you start to be like, you're kind of claiming magical powers at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right.
But anyway, the Christmas sweater thing. Let me read this. Most Christmas sweaters are made of plastic and are likely to contribute to plastic pollution in the world's oceans. An environmental charity has warned. Hubbub, a UK charity, found that 95% of the 108 sweaters it analyzed, taken from 11 high street and online retailers, were fully or partially made from plastic materials. Acrylic was the most common plastic. And what they're claiming is, Gregory, is that as you wash your sweater, okay, the plastic is going to seep into the water, and then that drains in the ocean, and now we've polluted our oceans with plastic because of Christmas sweaters.
Oh, well, sure. But it's okay for Greta to take a plastic boat, which is what she used, to sail back and forth from the old world to the new world. That's okay because she's woke and she's got she's got the right ideas. Mm-hmm. But we can't wear our Christmas sweaters. Yeah, no, thank you.
They're now calling this fast fashion. I had not heard this until I read this article. So it's a new threat. It's called fast fashion. Is a major threat to the natural world, and Christmas jumpers, I guess jumpers like onesies, are particularly problematic as so many contain plastic. So it just never stops.
Well,
it seems
Paul,
like, go ahead.
I think there was a misspelling there. It should have been fast fascism, not fashion, because that's what this is. It's fascism they're trying to impose on us.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. I can appreciate that pun. It seems like, though, there's nothing that they don't think is within their grasp to dictate to us. You know what I'm saying? Like, they literally are reaching, like you said, toenail fungus, now fast fashion, because fast fashion is what? Well, it's a lot more, it's broader than Christmas sweaters. You can take this in anybody that creates a new style, if it's got plastic in it, maybe we just need to, we need to use hand-me-downs, and we don't ever need to buy anything new. I feel like that's what they would want us to do.
Well, or maybe we need to use wool. Oh no, we can't use wool because those the sheep that they're using those are enslaved animals, and that's just not acceptable either, right?
Right.
I mean that's what they would say.
I can't operate. I can't exist in the world that they're trying to trying to build, Gregory. And I hope that most people get that. Like, if you try to take their conclusions and, to their logical end, we won't be able to do anything. There'll be no freedom.
Yeah, well, they just got hit. They got a 2x4 up the side of the head here this last week over in Madrid, Spain, at the climate conference that Greta Thunberg finally showed up to. And what they're realizing is that no matter what, everything that they're doing is for naught. And Greta Thunberg actually said that they're making no difference because China is thumbing their nose at the Paris Climate Accord in the Western world. Their lips are moving, and they keep promising carbon dioxide reductions and reduction of the use of coal. While they're speaking, on the other hand, they're just redlighting increased coal production and coal-fired electricity production. And to give you an example, the non-Chinese countries reduced their electricity generation capacity by coal by 8 gigawatts in the last year and a half. Now remember, everybody else reduced it by 8. China, in that same time period, increased it by 43. 43. So what they've done is taken, what is that, 5 times as much, 5+ times as much China's increased compared to what the Western world has reduced its coal-fired electricity. So what the whole goal of Al Gore and the climate alarmists, what I call the Ayatollahs of alarmism, their goal is to reduce fossil fuels because those create carbon dioxide emissions, CO2. But yet China just is going full speed ahead, and there's no effect. Anything that we can do, and I believe that CO2 does have a warming effect. I think it's overwhelmed by the natural forces. But any reduction in CO2 is just the world increased it by 4% of CO2. It keeps increasing every year, and I'm not opposed to that. I just got back from the gym. I wore my I Heart CO2 T-shirt to the gym this morning. And I've got a big I Heart CO2, I Love CO2 bumper sticker on the back of my truck, and I haven't been keyed yet, but that's probably going to be coming. So so what they're doing is there's everything that has been done to restrict our freedoms, to increase taxation, to increase regulations. All of those things have been, it's for naught. It has absolutely no effect on temperature, but it provides this. They're striving for this. It provides the moral justification for ever higher taxation, ever tighter regulation, ever greater state interference, ever larger funds to the governments and politicians, and it continues to diminish our individual freedoms and our freedom to use the energy we want. The reliable, abundant, affordable energy that comes from fossil fuels.
So I've got your app open. We're talking with Gregory Wrightstone. He's a geologist, author of the book Inconvenient Facts, the Science Al Gore Doesn't Want You to Know. Now, folks, it makes a great Christmas present, but you can get the app right now. Just download it on your iPhone or your Android device. I've got the app open, and I'm looking at Inconvenient Fact number 37. The Earth is becoming greener, not turning into a desert. And you've got this graph here, and it looks lovely. I mean, it looks like we're lush and we're a productive planet because we're green.
Well, we are. And I like to say it's the biggest untold story of the late 20th and early 21st century, and that's the greening of the Earth. The Earth is thriving and prospering, and humanity is benefiting because of modest temperature rise, and it is modest, and increasing CO2. It's, according to NASA, in the chart you're looking at there, it's a map of the Earth showing in green the areas where vegetation has increased, and you're looking at it. Your listeners aren't, but the Earth is covered in this green where it's prospering. According to NASA, up to 50% of the Earth is what they call greening. In other words, vegetation is increasing. And here's the key: less than 4% of the Earth is what they call browning, or a loss of vegetation. I'll take that trade-off any day of the week. And with 50% is thriving and prospering, and less than 4% is going the other way. And we're seeing that in some of the most arid parts of the world. Probably the best example is the Sahel in the southern Sahara. 300,000 square kilometers of the Sahel are turning into a lush grassland. Former desert areas where no one's lived in many hundreds, probably maybe 1,000 years, probably dating back to the medieval warm period, the last time temperatures rose to near levels like this. And we see it in China, India, Australia. The Earth is it's a completely different story from what we're being told. We're being told that the Earth's turning into vast deserts that will be consumed by wildfires and droughts, and just the opposite is occurring.
Entire
just crazy.
ecosystems are dying. Yeah, that is what we're being told. Then you got, coming along with your app, inconvenient fact number 42, cold kills far more people than heat every year.
Yeah, there's, again, completely opposite of what we're being told. The largest study of its kind was done by Dr. Antonio Gasparini and a team of physicians all over the world that looked at temperature-related deaths. According to this study, they looked at 74 million temperature-related deaths and found that 20 times as many people die due to cold as due to heat. Another similar study was done in the United Kingdom and Australia, those two nation states, and what they found, it was 15 times as many people. So whether it's 15 or 20, it's a huge multiples of people died due to cold-related deaths as due to heat. Again, what have I said before? Just opposite of what we're being told. And I say that a lot because that's what the science, the facts, and the data tell us. They're telling us what we're doing is these ayatollahs of alarmism are using predictions or speculation of what might occur 50 or 80 years in the future based on failed climate models. And what I do is in my book and the app, we're looking at what's actually happening today, not, oh, well, this might happen in 80 years. Yeah, probably not, but, let's show me something that's going really, really badly. Because just about by every metric we look at, we can find that the Earth's ecosystems are thriving and humanity's benefiting.
What you just said there, the opposite of what we're being told, that is true, I think, of obviously the climate change discussion, and I think it's true of almost every other political issue in the country today. So often you can believe the opposite of what the mainstream media is telling you, and you will be correct. Now, not always, and that's scary though, because that means that you don't want. I wouldn't want to get in that habit, but I mean, it's hard not to. It's scary though, because then if something really does happen, it's like the boy that cried wolf, and nobody's going to believe him. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, we're seeing a big uptick in sales for Christmas now. Lots of people. I just got an email from on our website here that I need 10 books. I want them signed, and I said okay. So I've been shipping out, both from our website and from me personally, just 10 here, 15 there. People want to give this to their people that believe and have bought in and have drunk the Kool-Aid on climate change. So it makes a great Christmas gift. So it's Inconvenient Facts.
Inconvenient Facts. We appreciate it. The author, again, Gregory Wrightstone. Gregory, it's always great to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you.
All righty, folks. We're going to make a YouTube video of this. Put it up on the channel. Please like the channel or subscribe to it, youtube.com, and search for Conduit News. We're going to be back here in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
We rebuilt China over the last 25 years.
Last November, as you know, I traveled to Shandong province. I met with Chairman Lee. I toured Sun Paper Company, along with Mike Preston. While in China, we signed a letter of intent on behalf of the state of Arkansas with Sun Paper, indicating that Sun Paper wanted to put a major bioproducts mill in South Arkansas,
The Communist Party has set its sights on controlling 90% of the world's most advanced industries, including robotics, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. To win the commanding heights of the 21st century economy, Beijing has directed its bureaucrats and businesses to obtain American intellectual.
Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News, The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs, as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Parrot.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back to the program. We really appreciate you being with us. Did anybody see Steve Harvey? Anybody ever watch Family Feud? I gotta say, I really like Steve Harvey and the job he does on Family Feud. That show, though, man, it's a little bit addictive, Family Feud. If you start watching, I don't have cable, but I've got family that does, and the game show channel, there's just a show that just plays game shows on the loop, and they'll play like Family Feud, like, for 2-3 hours at a time, just one show after the other. It can kind of get addictive. I'm really bad at the surveys, by the way. I would be terrible at that show. I think I overthink it. Did you see what Steve Harvey did at the Miss Universe pageant? Did you see this, Joe? We have the video. It's the go to the Twitchy link. No. Not the wrong name. That's a long time ago. although they're saying he might have done that again this year. He got caught rolling his eyes. Steve Harvey gave all-time eye roll to question about climate change at Miss Universe 2019. And the left is like, okay, well, I guess we know how Steve Harvey feels about climate change. Look at this question. Just click on that video. This is pretty funny. It's not every day you see a celebrity that just he knows this is BS. He just knows it is. Listen.
Are leaders of today doing enough to protect future generations from climate change? If not, what more should they be doing?
You can just tell, man, the guy is just Ron Burgundying it, just reading the teleprompter, in this case, reading the cue cards. And he's just like, he reads it, he gets through it, he's like, man, what did I just say? I just promoted this, do you think leaders of today are doing more to fight climate change? Like, climate change in the way the left is presenting it is literally the Scooby-Doo villain of our time, in my opinion. It's the Scooby-Doo villain of our time. It's like you start out thinking it's like a big deal, right? Oh my gosh, it's this creepy monster and we're trapped. We got to do something. And then you realize that it's just a dude in a mask trying to manipulate you and scare you so that they can get away with some crime, so that they can get away with the family jewels or whatever. And, hopefully we as a society will get to the point where we unmask the Scooby-Doo villain that is climate change, and we realize that it's, just the old man farmer that we met the first 2 minutes of the episode, that he was just trying to protect his own and control and basically fleece or loot somebody, take advantage of somebody, because the solution to climate change is always socialism for some reason and getting rid of choice and capitalism. And hopefully he will say to us, I would have gotten away with it. I would have gotten away with it, too, if it wasn't for you meddling talk radio hosts. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Coming up at the bottom of the next hour, we'll be talking with Family Council President Jerry Cox. Transgenders in sports. That's the topic. Boys pretending to be girls, shattering girls' athletic dreams. Do you remember when it was I don't know, I would say not necessarily progressive, but it was the liberal thing, like, we need Title IX, we need women athletics, we need, if boys can compete in athletics, girls should be able to compete in athletics too. You have boys basketball, you're going to need to have girls basketball. You got baseball, you're going to need to have some softball. And it went back and forth, and, aside from the fact that for the most part, women's athletics are really boring to me. Except for maybe tennis. I can get behind the tennis. Although, if you watch the speed of that ball in women's tennis versus the speed of the ball in men's, the male tennis is way more exciting because it just is. It just is. I mean, who was it? Dave Chappelle in that incredible stand-up. Best stand-up in 20 years. Best stand-up of a generation, because it's come at a time we're so politically incorrect. We're so politically correct. It was great to have somebody just tell jokes. Didn't care where everything landed. But he said, what if LeBron James changed his gender? Does he get to stay in the NBA, or does he have to go to the WNBA where he will score 1,000 points a game? You know what I mean? And then he takes the left's logic to its natural conclusion, which would be, and if you really think about it, with this whole transgender thing, there shouldn't be a WNBA at all, because if the girls were, they should just be good enough to play in the NBA, because everything's fluid. And then he ends, or you could just shut up, is what he says. Doesn't quite say it that way, though. I'm butchering his joke, but the point is not lost. There are massive mental contradictions going on to follow it's how many genders are there now? Like 90, or is it infinite now?
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Property, the foundation of our economic leadership by any means necessary.
Chairman Lee and I met yesterday. Chairman Lee indicated to me that Sun Paper has selected Arkadelphia in Clark County as the location of a $1 billion bioproducts mill.
Beijing now requires many American businesses to hand over their trade secrets as the cost of doing business in China. It also coordinates and sponsors the acquisition of American firms to gain ownership of their creations. Worst of all, Chinese security agencies have masterminded the wholesale theft of American technology, including cutting-edge military blueprints. And using that stolen technology, the Chinese Communist Party is turning plowshares into swords on a massive scale.
Well, thank you all for joining us via Skype from Beijing this morning. Here in Beijing, it is 10 p.m. in the evening. I've had a very successful trip to China.
China now spends as much on its military as the rest of Asia combined. And Beijing has prioritized capabilities to erode America's military advantages on land, at sea, in the air, and in space.
I've spoken at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, which was a treat for me to speak with young Chinese students about Arkansas, and also to talk about the relationship between China and the United States.
China wants nothing less than to push the United States of America from the Western Pacific and attempt to prevent us from coming to the aid of our allies. But they will fail. Beijing is also using its power like never before. Chinese ships routinely patrol around the Senkaku Islands, which are administered by Japan. And while China's leader stood in the Rose Garden at the White House in 2015 and said that his country had, and I quote, no intention to militarize the South China Sea. Today, Beijing has deployed advanced anti-ship and anti-air missiles atop an archipelago of military bases constructed on artificial islands. China's aggression was on display this week when a Chinese naval vessel came within 45 yards of the USS Decatur as it conducted freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea, forcing our ship to quickly maneuver to avoid collision. Despite such reckless harassment, the United States Navy will continue to fly, sail, and operate wherever international law allows and our national interests demand. We will not be intimidated, and we will not stand down.
And we'll be calling on multiple prospects in China, as well as continuing our relationship with Sun Paper in Shandong Province.
In recent years, China has taken a sharp U-turn toward control and oppression of its own people. Today, China has built an unparalleled surveillance state, and it's growing more expansive and intrusive. often with the help of U.S. technology. And when it comes to religious freedom, a new wave of persecution is crashing down on Chinese Christians, Buddhists, and Muslims.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. We can't do the show without you listening every single day. We very much appreciate it. The telephone number is 870-275-9799. And, man, we got a great rest of the hour for you. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, we'll be talking once again with Jerry Cox. Jerry Cox is the president of the Family Council, and we're going to be talking about transgender individuals who are destroying women's sports, destroying the dreams of women who are trying to compete against one another, and then all of a sudden somebody with the muscle mass and bone density of a man, because they are a man, just makes it impossible for them to compete. So we've got that at issue for sure. Okay, so let's start here, though. So I'm reading this story, and it appears that it's good news. Listen to this headline by Andrew Moreau. A timber firm has decided to locate in Conway, Arkansas, and Walmart. Yes. And Walmart is the key to a $90 million, 130-job project. Now, it centers around a Canadian timber manufacturer. Andrew Moreau says that a Canadian timber manufacturer will invest $90 million and hire 130 employees as it creates its first U.S.-based facility in Conway. The facility is projected to open by mid-2021. The Canadian company is called Structure Lam Mass Timber Corporation. The leading mass timber manufacturer in North America announced Monday that the Conway plant's first customer will be Walmart, which will use 1.1 million cubic feet of cross-laminated timber produced at the plant to build its new headquarters in Bentonville. So it's being billed as an Arkansas project, end to end. Trees grown in Arkansas, soil will be harvested by Arkansas loggers and produced at an Arkansas facility to be used by an Arkansas company. This sounds really, really good. Quote, together, we are creating a future based on an innovative product that is transforming commercial building construction across North America. Structure Lam Chief Executive Officer Hardy Wenzel said, cross-laminated timber is a super strong wood panel produced by gluing together layers of sawed lumber. There are low levels of waste resulting from the production process. So Walmart has forged a strategic partnership, which includes an equity investment by the retailer, and they are being it's being reported that Walmart was integral in getting this company from Canada to locate in Conway. Quote, Walmart approached us about producing timber, and once we began discussions, it made sense to go down the equity investment path. I got another quote here from Dan Bartlett, Executive Vice President of Walmart. Quote, we didn't know if it was possible to manufacture the product here in Arkansas, Bartlett said, noting that the company considered shipping the pine outside the state and perhaps outside the country for production. Quote, the more we looked at it and discussed it, that just didn't make sense. So, Walmart got in contact with Structure Lamb and decided to invest in production to bring the company to Arkansas. Quote, this was more than just a purchase order for us, Bartlett said. We understood the capital investment it would take to do this here, and that's when the conversation shifted to what it would take for us to be a financial partner. So, Walmart is a financial partner with this Canadian company, Structure Lamb. They were integral in getting this company to locate to Conway. Ironically, the timber will be produced in a 288,000 square foot facility that was built to manufacture steel fasteners for Nucor Steel. Work to convert the facility will begin next month. So, Structure Lamb is based in British Columbia. It is investing $10 million to upgrade the plant. Now, I know what you guys are waiting for here. You're waiting to hear, what is the taxpayer going to have to do? Because so far, you've got a private company and a private company working together, investing with each other in some capacity. Walmart investing in this company to bring them here. So far, it's like, hey, this is a win-win. And it's all going good until we get to this part of the article. Joe, scroll down to where it says Governor's Praise. I'm telling you, folks, I did not set out to do this, but it's unavoidable. Governor's Praise. Quote, the governor, this is a dynamic boost to our timber industry in Arkansas. Governor Hutchinson said the stage for the announcement was framed by the company's cross-laminated timber products. The timber industry, Hutchinson said, plants 1.6 trees for every one that is harvested, providing a foundation for continued growth. Quote, this is sustainable long into the future. We need to be able to have this kind of production. This is key to the future direction we want to go in Arkansas. Okay, skipping down. The governor also announced Monday that the timber produced at the plant will be used to build the new dormitory at the Fire Training Academy in Camden. But this is the part at the very bottom of the screen right there. Joe, scroll up, but it's at the very bottom. Walmart declined to reveal. Scroll down, I mean. Walmart declined to reveal the details about its financial investment in Structure Lamb, which is privately owned. Quote, it was a significant enough amount to make sure the project could take place, Bartlett said. In addition to Walmart's support, Structure Lamb is receiving $1.5 million in cash from the governor's Quick Action Closing Fund. The company also will receive an annual cash rebate based on the number of jobs it adds, and refunds on sales taxes for the purchase of building materials, machinery, and equipment associated. It's the last part that is now calls everything into question. For those of you that don't know, we've been covering the story of the governor's law firm for the last 2 months, it seems like, and Walmart is a client of the governor's law firm. The governor says he has no financial interest in it, but see, this is just where it gets very, very fishy. And I've been trying to tell you folks that because the fact that the same clients that have already been getting taxpayer dollars, these Chinese companies, are also clients of the governor's law firm that he claims he has no financial interest in, Okay, and he says he doesn't anticipate going back to the law firm after he leaves office, but I don't think any of us really give that any credit. We know what's happening here. The law firm continues to grow while he's in office. His son is running it. But this is a Canadian law firm. Do they need visa work too? So that's the first question. Is the Canadian law firm going to specifically use, is the Canadian timber company going to specifically use the governor's law firm? They don't really even have to, because the real question is, Walmart is the first client listed on the governor's website, on the governor's law firm's website. That's being run by his son, he says. And so we have Walmart that's already paying the governor's law firm in some capacity, or has in the past. And we have the governor giving $1.5 million in cash to a company that is coming here because Walmart invested in it. Excuse me, but we all know what that looks like. We don't know if we don't have any concrete proof per se that, that the governor's law firm is getting more money because of this deal, but it looks like that could be a possibility. And that's what I have been saying here, is the fact that these Chinese communist entities are coming here and they're also paying the governor's law firm. It calls into question every policy goal that the governor advocates for, virtually, maybe not every one of them, but almost every one of them has now got to be looked at with new scrutiny. For example, he wants the new tax, or he wants the half-cent tax for highways. That's his number one campaign priority in 2020. Republican governor wants a tax. He's going to go all around the state. Well, how do we know the construction companies aren't going to somehow be clients of the governor's law firm? My point is now we have to ask this question at every single turn. And it's extremely inconvenient for the governor, I'm sure. But are we just supposed to ignore this? Are we supposed to ignore that Walmart is a client of the governor's law firm that he says is being run by his son? He doesn't anticipate going back to the law firm after he leaves office, but the law firm certainly is growing. Walmart then gives this company money, invests in this company to bring them here, and then that company gets $1.5 million that Walmart is heavily invested in and stands to make. The more profitable this Canadian company is, Walmart obviously stands, you would imagine, they stand to, I mean, how much ownership does Walmart have in this company at this point? Obviously, we're not going to know that either because it's private details, nor should we know it. Although you can make the argument when you get taxpayer money, maybe you are now you are open to further scrutiny with freedom of information. I mean, I think very much like if you're going to take welfare, drug testing should be an option. If you're going to take government money, then maybe the public does need to be able to look into your books a little bit. I could get behind something like that. I think, if anything, it might disincentivize all this corporate welfare that we see all the time. Or they'd probably just do it another way. Instead of direct cash, it'd just be tax incentives. But what do you think about that? This was a great story. Walmart buying this company or investing in this company, bringing them here. Arkansas Timber, Arkansas Plant, Arkansas Construction with Walmart's new headquarters. Nobody's against that. But it's the very end of the article, the little nugget of truth. The real headline should be, Governor gives taxpayer money to clients to clients' newest investment. I mean, it's like that's the nugget of truth that's kind of buried in here that just, it's like, and again, it's not like you don't even set out to do this. It's just in the headlines and nobody really wants to talk about it. The appearance of impropriety, the appearance of unethical behavior. I mean, it's exhausting. It's really exhausting that nobody seems to care other than Conduit News. And who knows? Somebody says, well, ACE's communist Chinese clients be involved. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea about this company in Canada. I haven't researched it at all. Who knows? So, anyway, it just makes it look like he gave the money that will pay his law firm. I mean, it makes it look like that. And that's why the other stories, that's why the story with the Dallas company iStation needs to get way more attention as well. The education company that's a client of the governor's law firm that also received a giant $3 million plus contract with the Department of Education here in Arkansas. You have to continue to give the Arkansas voter reason to trust Republicans in office. Telephone number is 870-275-9799. We're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Let me know what you think. Back in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
Last month, Beijing shut down one of China's largest underground churches. Across the country, authorities are tearing down crosses, burning Bibles, and imprisoning believers.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
This is a sick story, man. If this is true, man, this is a sick story. Headline, British lesbian couple. I don't even want to say this. This is disgusting. This is just disgusting. You found this in a meme, and I've got to read the actual story. Ugh. I'm sorry, but I think it needs to be talked about. This is crazy to me. From the UK Telegraph. British lesbian couple first to carry baby in both their wombs. A British lesbian couple have become the first parents to have a baby carried in both of their wombs in a landmark shared motherhood procedure. Ugh. Jasmine Frances Smith gave birth to Otis, their son, 2 months ago, using an egg that was implanted using IVF after it was first incubated by her wife, Donna. The treatment offered by the London Women's Clinic involves one partner contributing and incubating the egg, while the other subsequently carries the fetus. While more than 100 babies have been born to lesbian couples using artificial incubation, this procedure has gone one step further with both parents participating. Lance Corporal Donna Frances Smith from Nottinghamshire told the Telegraph, "We're overwhelmed, to be honest. It's blown up massively." Okay.
So
what exactly happened here?
So from what I'm hearing is they risked the life of their child because the egg started in one, fertilized and incubated, and then removed to put in the other before.
It's just like an unnecessary step. It's like
this is motherhood with extra steps.
It's
if that's what they did, that risked the life of.
Oh man!
My word!
Quote: You get a lot of same-sex couples where one person is doing the whole thing, and the one person is getting pregnant and giving birth, whereas with this, we're both involved in a massive way. it's definitely brought us closer together emotionally. I mean,
only one of you still births the child.
It doesn't. Like, whatever makes you feel better. I mean, like, I don't
sleep at night. Whatever.
No, I don't. No, I'm not saying that in the case like dismissing this. I think this is very disturbing for what you said about risking the life of the child, because it's clearly, it's clearly a risk. But I'm saying, like, what kind of kindergarten, like, we now have medical procedures, quote, medical procedures that are essentially just patronizing people's fantasies about how they wish their lives were. You wish there was a natural way for same-sex couples to actually produce a child, but guess what? There's not. So let's just contrive and do these extra steps to make people feel better about what they are not able to do naturally, and let's risk the child to do it. What a joke. I don't know. I mean, this is just, it's, ugh.
Yeah, when I first found this, I thought the comment that was made, which I thought was hilarious.
Nothing tells you love your baby like ripping it from one womb and putting it in another.
Yeah, for no reason.
For no reason.
I thought it when I first read that, I thought it was talking about something else entirely. This is what I was thinking was, like one of the women gave birth, like actually gave birth, and then they took the baby and put it in the other woman, and then so she could give birth.
Yeah,
I thought that's what it meant. I was like, that's so absurd. This is even worse.
Well, the headlines might lead you to believe some of that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at
this
some
is,
of these other ones.
Honestly, in my opinion, I think this is worse. The fact that you risk the life of the child that you spent so much time, like, making sure. Because in vitro fertilization is not a guaranteed anything.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's not guaranteed.
If you don't believe that you're actually dealing with human life, which
True.
Then it's just a group of chemicals that come together. Life's just a bunch of chemicals that come together, and then you die.
Because I know multiple couples who've had to do in vitro fertilization and able to have kids. It's so expensive.
Yeah,
it is not cheap by any means. And the fact that
well. Yeah, here's the Mirror. British lesbian couple become the first in the world to carry a baby in both wombs. Gosh, I mean, I just
I guess they truly don't value human life.
So strange. So strange. Yeah, Travis on Facebook writes they don't believe it is a child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dennis, risk the life of the child? These are the same people who absolutely support abortion. Does anyone think they would care if the child didn't make it? They would just try again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I people on Facebook get it. Sound off on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News. That is a crazy story, Joe. Like, absolutely nuts.
This is what I find these regularly going through memes of the day, trying to find something.
Former Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin over in Ukraine has recently conducted an interview with One America's channel. Rudy Giuliani was there. This has had the left freaking out. And Viktor Shokin in the interview says that when he froze the assets of Burisma, Biden was furious. Rudy Giuliani is getting to the bottom of the corruption in the deep state, and it looks like the corruption involves a network of politicians from both parties. He traveled to Ukraine to interview former Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin to find out what happened with Joe Biden and Burisma. Former Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin spoke to One America News and about Joe Biden's direct role in getting his office to stop investigating his son Hunter. And if you read the whole thing, it is a Pandora's box. As part of Owns Investigates exclusives, One America's channel Rion flew to Europe to talk to additional witnesses. These officials claim to have evidence proving the DNC collusion and criminal activity by the Bidens. And you can check that out. This is a story that's not going to get a lot of press, but I will tell you, in a way, it's unavoidable because Paul Sperry tweeted that the Republican Party, this is very interesting, the GOP has successfully convinced Jerry Nadler to submit a Politico article, Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire, into the congressional record, into the congressional impeachment record, which debunks the Democrats and the mainstream media talking point that the Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election has been, quote, debunked. It hasn't. Left-leaning Politico wrote about it a couple of years ago. Back in a minute.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
And Beijing has now reached a deal with the Vatican that gives the avowedly atheist Communist Party a direct role in appointing Catholic bishops. For China's Christians, these are desperate times.
So, do you like him as a candidate?
I think he's brought a lot to the table. It's not my message. I worry about the party in terms of expanding our base and what the message does to our recruitment of Hispanics, outreach to minorities. And so you've got to worry about the fall election and whether this is a message that's going to carry in Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, and those states that we need to carry.
The American people deserve to know. In response to the strong stand that President Trump has taken, Beijing is pursuing a comprehensive and coordinated campaign to undermine support for the president, our agenda, and our nation's most cherished ideals.
I think you've got to listen to what he says and how he conducts himself. And I don't know that he would be that different from what he is now in negotiating with Vladimir Putin. So,
you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. We need people who, in the presidency, that understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, welcome back. Good morning to you. We got on the line the president of the Family Council, Jerry Cox, is with us. You can find out more at familycouncil.org. Jerry, how are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm glad that you had time to come on, and I wanted to talk about this subject. I know you did too. Trans athletes posting victories, shaking up sports. This is an article from Wired magazine. Transgender athletes at all levels of sport are winning medals, spurring a contentious debate over the future of gendered competition. You're following this cultural phenomenon, aren't you?
It's more like a cultural train wreck, I'm afraid. But yes, it is a phenomenon. But yeah, it's just more nonsense. And I think everybody recognizes this. If you let boys, men, compete against girls or women, the guys are going to have a huge advantage. I mean, everybody knows that men are bigger, stronger, faster as a whole than women are. And so some of these social engineering people out here are now saying, well, if a guy feels like he's a girl, he ought to be able to run track with the girls' track team in high school. And that's just ridiculous.
I understand in about a dozen states, boys can compete in girls' athletics by declaring themselves to be transgendered, but some schools require the participant to be engaged in some type of gender reassignment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, gender reassignment is a really bad solution to gender dysphoria. I guess there have always been some people who had questions about their sexual orientation, their gender, and that sort of thing. And in years past, it was recognized as something that you try to get help for, and hopefully you were able to get past it, recover from it, and move on. In the modern era that we're in now, in some states, it's illegal to help people, quote, get over their gender dysphoria. Not that way here in Arkansas. A person can still get help, but in some places it's illegal. And so they've taken it the extra step now where, and you don't know for sure what the real motive of some of these boys is, but you have high school boys now who are coming out and saying, you know what, I'm a girl, I'm a transgender person, I want to compete on the girls' track team. And see, you may recall that during the Obama administration, there was a directive from the Department of Education, I believe it was, that said that you have to allow those transgender athletes to be able to shower with the girls, allow them to dress with the girls, use the same restroom facilities as the girls in your high school. And that created a huge backlash. And so when Donald Trump got elected president, the administration has reversed that, but now it's left up to the schools and state laws around the country. And as you pointed out earlier, there are probably a dozen or so states where at some level, boys, can compete against girls in athletics in high school.
Do you find this, we're talking with Jerry Cox, the president of the Family Council, do you find this kind of a reversal of what might be considered, a policy goal of the left, a couple of decades ago? This idea of Title IX, this idea of, okay, if you have, men's basketball, you need to have women's basketball. If you have baseball, you need to have softball. I mean, this used to be clearly, it was about equality and giving women the opportunity to compete in athletics against other women, just like men have that opportunity. But if you take their ideas now to their logical conclusions, why is there any separation at all between the two,
Well, and see, you make an excellent point because, back in the 70s, and I can remember, being in high school in the late 60s and graduated high school in 1970 when there was not this equality between male and female sports in high school. You'd have a lot of opportunities for boys to play football and baseball and run track and do the other things, but the girls really didn't have much. And so Title IX came along in 1972, and rightfully so. It was designed to give girls some of the same opportunities that boys had to do sports. And so then you had schools doing girls basketball, girls track, softball, on and on. Now it's all pretty equal, I think. And so, but what you have now is you have the feminists in a real bind because they've said women are just as good as men and women need to be able to do whatever men do and so forth and so on. We know the line. And so now that these transgender athletes have come along and said, well, we're boys, we're going to compete against the girls and take the opportunities from the girls, now the feminists are in a real bind, and some are saying, that's unfair to put a guy out there running against the girls or competing against the girls, and others are kind of swallowing the bitter pill and saying, well, I guess we have to, do it in the name of equality. And, it's created a split, really, among the feminists. But see, here's what's at the bottom of all this, or the end of all this. You have young girls out here who work extremely hard, work just as hard as the boys do to be good at track or softball or basketball or volleyball or whatever it is. They work as hard as the boys do. And then you have a boy coming along saying, I think I'm going to put a wig. And literally, we had some guys up in Connecticut that put on a wig and ran against the girls, kind of making fun of them. And they beat them. And that's unfair to those girls to treat them that way or create an environment where they're treated that way, because a lot of these girls want to get a scholarship to go to college. They want to play volleyball. They want to play basketball. They want to play soccer or softball. And if you have boys winning all the championships, that puts girls on the bench, and they probably don't get a scholarship then, and they don't get their education paid for, and they don't have the same equal shot that guys do who are elite athletes and want to run track or play football or whatever it is they do.
You already mentioned this, but I want to go down the list just because any chance we need these are politically these are politically incorrect facts. Okay, generally, men have more muscle mass. Men are stronger and faster than women. Women have more endurance and faster muscle recovery time. Men have thicker bones. Men have more red blood cells to carry oxygen. Women have more estrogen, leading to more body fat. Men have greater lung capacity. Men are physically larger than women. Also, elite male and female athletes are better now than in the past, but the difference between male and female athletes has remained a constant. Now, if you go over to what you mentioned, Jerry, over in Connecticut, there is the Alliance Defending Freedom. What are they doing in this discrimination complaint about Title IX?
Well, I just got back from a conference in Phoenix with the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they had one of the young ladies that is in the center of the complaint in Connecticut came in with her mother and spoke to those of us that were at the conference, and it was just great. Just hearing this girl's story, but also really made me sad that this young girl is an elite high school track star. She's great in the 100 meter, the 200 meter, and the 400 meter runs. And you have these boys coming in, and I'll just use the word stealing that from her. And they were talking about the fact that this violates Title IX, because Title IX was designed to create equality for girls to be able to do sports and win and be elite in their division and so forth. And this turns all that on its head when you let guys come in there. And so I'm with them. I hope that they win this complaint against the Department of Education, and that they're able to change that back the way it should be, because what this does, it upends about 50 years of advancements that women and girls have made to be able to play sports and to be elite in their field against other girls, other women, and it just turns all that on its head. And so, Paul, I was thinking about this. Even here in Arkansas, we have different divisions for boys and girls athletics, so that it gives kids in small schools a chance to be winners. And that's okay, because I grew up in one of those little bitty schools. There were 30-something people in my graduating class, and we competed in the small school division in football. Well, there's no way our football team with 30 kids on it could come up here to Little Rock and compete against one of the big city schools. And so we were in a small division, and we got to play and win and all that. And I think we lose sight of what athletics is supposed to be about. It's about character. It's about sportsmanship. It's about all those things. And now we've made it about a bunch of guys getting out here and putting on makeup and a wig and acting like girls. And as I said, kind of making fun of the girls because they have an inherent advantage.
We're talking again with Jerry Cox, president of the Family Council. These are, very much cultural issues affecting our country. And they are, if they're not already, Jerry, they're going to affect Arkansas. And that's where I feel like the General Assembly can come in and try to prevent this from ever even being a problem by passing some new legislation. Do you think there's stuff out there we could do to prevent what we see happening in these other states?
Well, certainly we need to learn from these other states and say, you know what, not here, not on our watch are we going to let girls be mistreated this way. And so, Paul, I hate to say it, but we've tried a couple of legislative sessions already to say that you can't have boys in the girls' locker room and boys in the girls' changing room and boys in the girls' bathrooms and all that. And we've just hit a brick wall out at the legislature on that. And, you know, I want us to come back and make another run at that, because what dad or mom wants a boy standing in the girls' locker room gawking at their daughter? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And it doesn't have to be that way. And right now, that's open as a possibility here in Arkansas, and because there's no law against it, and so that's open. And all you need is one outside the box family out here that says, I want my boy to be able to dress with the girls, compete with the girls. He's transgendered, and we're off and running with the very same thing that they've got up in Connecticut and some of these other places. And so you're right. Our leaders need to step up and do something about this to be sure that it does not happen here.
And I certainly hope, I hope that they will, and they need to know, you know, groups like yours, and I mean, the people of Arkansas, I think in general, will support them. I mean, they really will, and people see this as being just a huge. I think it's just a huge sign. I would liken it to what on the abortion issue. It was a very positive thing when you had states like Virginia and New York passing these pro-abortion laws up to 9 months, and you know, then the governor said maybe even outside of the womb. And yet our state, the time that was happening, our state was passing pro-life laws. We were doing we were saying, no, our culture in Arkansas is going to be one that respects life. Our culture is going to be going on a clearly different path here. And I feel like the legislature should apply that same conviction to these issues that are facing our country when it comes to girls and guys and transgenderism, you know?
Yeah. Well, and as you pointed out, the people of Arkansas see this for what it is. If you walked out here on the street right now and you stopped 100 people and you talked about this situation to 100 people, I dare say over 90 of them would say, no, we shouldn't have transgender boys over here in the girls' locker room, and we shouldn't have them out here running around the track or playing basketball or doing whatever and beating the girls because they have an inherent advantage. I spoke with an athletics expert yesterday, and he said, on average, men and boys have about a 30% advantage over women and girls when it comes to athletics. Now, you'll always find women who can outperform men, outrun men, and all that. But I'm talking about if you took all the men in the world and all the women in the world, the men have about a 30% advantage when it comes to strength and athleticism and all that. And that's not rocket science. We all know that. I can remember when I was in high school, the leading free throw shooter in our school was about a 5-foot-tall girl. But if you put her out there playing basketball against the boys, she'd get killed because she's 5 feet tall, and she just can't compete at that level. And it doesn't diminish or demean women to say that. It's just that God made us uniquely, wonderfully different in our own ways. And, so in no way is this to put down women in any way. And, I think they ought to be able to compete as much as they can. And as I pointed out earlier, women athletes are getting faster, stronger, but so are the men. Mm-hmm. And so the difference between the two really hasn't changed much in the last 30 years. The men are getting better and the women are getting better. But I don't care how much you let women train, they just can't make up that 30% in most cases out there on average.
Yeah. Jerry, you make excellent points, sir, and I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. It's always great to talk to you.
Well, it's always good to visit with you, and I'm sure we'll have other strange things to talk about later on.
I think we will. Hey, and if I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Okay, same to you.
All righty. Folks, we're going to take a break. Going to make a video of this, post it up on the YouTube channel and conduitnews.com. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
Folks, as a taxpayer or business owner, I know the government rarely gives the people a break. Big government politicians seem to always want more money from us, taxpayers. So if you want to support the work we're doing right here at Conduit News, bringing you the truth, then why not consider giving less money to the government that never stops overspending and overtaxing us by giving a tax-deductible donation to Conduit for Commerce, the premier organization in Arkansas that never stops promoting small business and limited government. Just go to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Support Our Cause. From there, you can decide if you want to donate monthly or one time. Give the government that's using your tax dollars to grow and grow less, and give the people fighting for your values more. Conduitforcommerce.org.
That understand how the world works, understands that there's a time for bluster and there's a time for reason.
The Chinese Communist Party is rewarding or coercing American businesses, movie studios, universities, think tanks, scholars, journalists, and local, state, and federal officials.
And then, Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell.
Money, power, prestige, essence. Available now from aristocrats serving Arkansas. From the Nata Rhino collection. The fragrance of backroom deals. Nepotism. The aroma of higher taxes. Subliminal deception. Deep state. Ace. Made right here in Arkansas by a taxpayer-funded Chinese factory. Every bottle carefully crafted for you. Gender neutral. Nothing says aristocrat like Essence of Bureaucrat. Essence of Bureaucrat by Asa.
Available now in the Marble Palace gift shop.
Paul Harrell parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. Real quick, a rundown of the situation. President Trump saying that The Inspector General's report was worse than he thought it was going to be. The first thing you need to know, though, to get through all of the media spin that you're hearing, trying to protect all of the people who are anti-Trump, we want to protect them if you're the mainstream media. First thing to know about Michael Horowitz's report, he laid out a disclaimer at the very beginning of this report that he would not be challenging the discretionary authority, meaning he'll just accept the explanations of those in the Justice Department and give them the benefit of the doubt. Sorry, officer, I didn't know I couldn't do that. That leaves the thing pretty vague. Then he basically set a very high bar for any kind of misconduct. He has no criminal authority, and former employees cannot be compelled to talk to Michael Horowitz. That means that the report, even though it's 450 pages long, is somewhat a limited report. The real investigation is a criminal investigation being conducted by John Durham, who has very broad authority. The best analogy that you can, if you want to tell your friends around the water cooler what this IG report was, the IG report, the IG is to the government what the Human Resources Department is to a corporation. You're going to believe that the Human Resources Department exists to protect the workforce and the people, but none of you really believe that, right? In reality, Human Resource Department is there to protect the corporation from any legal trouble. Likewise, that's what the Inspector General there is for. And there are many reports that support that assertion. In the meantime, though, it still doesn't negate the damning information that comes from the report. Congressman Jim Jordan, Carter Page was an operational contact for a different U.S. government agency, briefing them on communication with a Russian contact, but the FBI ignored that fact and instead applied for a FISA application to spy on Carter Page, even though he was already given the CIA intel. Then we have John Solomon. The Inspector General excoriates FBI conduct in Russia probe, concludes FISA court was misled. Attorney General Barr says the report substantiates clear abuse of the FISA process. Then you have Paul Sperry from Real Clear Investigations. U.S. Attorney Durham poo-pooing IG Horowitz's findings that FBI had adequate predication to open investigation of 4 Trump campaign officials, noting Horowitz was limited in who he interviewed and that Durham has interviewed witnesses, including overseas, and has additional evidence. Durham says, I got the goods that Michael Horowitz does not. But this is a groundwork here. Kayleigh McEnany, Attorney General Barr, on the damning Inspector General Horowitz report, quote, the Inspector General shows FBI launched an intrusive investigation of a U.S. presidential campaign on the thinnest of suspicions that, in my view, were insufficient to justify the steps taken. The left is inevitably going to claim that we're a banana republic now. The media is protecting the elites. Dan Bongino tweeting, let's see the media hacks spin this disaster. The Crossfire Hurricane team failed to inform the DOJ of significant information, much of which was inconsistent with or undercut its FISA application assertions. Then Congressman Mark Meadows, after reading this, it's no wonder we've been seeing defensive leaks in the New York Times and CNN, and that the Democrats rushed to hold an impeachment hearing the same day the report was scheduled to be released. And we have that thing I told you about last hour where Jonathan Turley on the impeachment and the banana taped to the wall. That you can go watch the first hour to get that. So anyway, the whole thing is fascinating. From a news standpoint, the stories continue to develop, and we're going to bring you the latest news as we find it. We'll be here. Actually, I won't be here tomorrow, but that brings me to this point. I want to remind everybody that we have big changes coming here at Conduit News, and tomorrow is part. I've got to do some work to help with those changes. We're going to have improved formats, greater audience reach. It's all starting the first of the year. New shows, new websites, same great news, same great insights. And we can't wait to show you what we're working on. We can't wait to continue to not only do what we're doing, but in a bigger capacity, in one that will reach even more people. than we reach now. And that's why you have to get online. You have to get online right now so you can follow us. Go to conduitnews.com, sign up for the updates, like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, click the little bell to receive notifications. Arkansas,